Sadistic Penguin Studios presents the At the Show podcast with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
And Tony Chalsa Burt.
I don't know this industry jargon, YP, MP, whatever, okay? All I know is that I cannot get a record contract. We cannot get a record contract unless I take these tapes.
It's almost time, so grab a drink, get your popcorn ready, and join the film discussion with two guys from Chicago talking movies.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the At the Show podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tom Yumper Garcia. I'm with my other co-host, Tony, the Sugar Baggy Burt. How you doing, my man?
Doing great. Awesome. I wanted to share this before, but I'll wait. Now look what my sister got me from Iceland.
Oh, nice.
Puff fiction for puffins or whatever they're called there. Doing good.
Doing good. Do a Puff Daddy.
From Godzilla, when he copied the
Come with me. Look
yeah.
Actually,
like that song. But in a connection to wrap this all around, an article that you did the other day, amazing, my friend, on Rage Against the Machine. Rage's song on the Godzilla soundtrack, "No Shelter." That was.
Oh yes. I've been listening to a lot of live Rage. I actually listened to the Aragon Ballroom in '96. I actually listened to that today when I was doing our notes earlier.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been like on a Rage kick. So I've been texting you back and forth about how I want to write about it, but it just it came into that nice article. Luckily, that article is readable because I hate writing. But how you been, my friend? How's everything going with you?
Going good. In the last couple of weeks, have watched a plethora of movies. Excited to talk about some more and get rolling.
Yes, sir. So let's just go straight into it, Tom. Let's go into what we've been watching this week.
All right.
That's a me. And also, what were you just watching?
So let's pop this up and go into our screen here.
Oh, there we go.
Cool. So what were you watching this week, Tom?
Okay, two movies that I watched this week. If you rewind back, it was December, January when we went and seen The Iron Claw. Saw a trailer when we were sitting there of this movie here on the screen called ISS. And what it was it seemed to be the Americans and the Russians were up in a space station. And while they were up in the space station, it seems to be World War III has started on Earth. So there are tasked with trying to take over the said space station up there. So because down there it is not so good. And really quick even here before I go off here, here's a little bit of a clip.
Mutually, we're evolved species.
Pretty much, honestly, it's a lot like Alien in space, but with no aliens. But that being said, it was pretty entertaining. It's currently on Hulu. It just got released on there. If you're interested in checking that out, I'm sure. Have you watched this yet? Probably not.
No, actually, it kind of reminds me. I don't know if you're a gamer as much as I am, but there's a game called Prey that's kind of like this. It's kind of like the setting of Alien, but it's more with like dark matter and stuff. It kind of gave me that kind of vibes just watching it.
The camera work is really awesome. The plot I think is kind of interesting, especially there's scenes like on the poster there. If you're looking online or if you're just listening, seeing down there what would look like from above looks pretty cool. But the flip side of that coin, to kind of cheer up the mood, a movie I watch quite a lot because it reminds me a lot of what's going on around us, is a movie called Idiocracy. What I would deem to be, well, first of all, having grown up during the Beavis and Butthead era, being able to see Mike Judge able to, some of his movies he has released have been, in my spectrum in the comedy, have been really, really awesome, like Office Space and Idiocracy, right here. Here's a little clip, again, showcasing some of the humor in the movie.
Costco, I love you. Welcome to Costco, I love you. Welcome to Costco, I love you. Welcome to Costco.
Shuttle's down there in electronics, about an hour from here.
Like, to imagine that Costco would look like that. But again, we do a movie show, and there's a scene later in the movie where they go to the movies, and in the future there's just a movie called Ass, and it's just a butt on the screen, and people are laughing, and it's great. And sometimes I get the impression sometimes movies feel like they're getting closer to that from afar, but I find it to be a very smart movie overall, and I think Luke Wilson does a really good job in it. And what do you think?
No, I love Idiocracy. Luke Wilson is totally like more of a dry humor kind of delivery, more than his brother Owen.
I used to debate this a lot, how much of a huge fan of that dry delivery I liked, and he does it well.
Yeah, especially even in Old School.
Yeah,
like he does a dry like humor delivery, which is funny. But yeah, great movie. Speaks a lot to society today. So
it really
that's a good pick.
It really does.
Especially the fact that they don't drink water; they drink like a energy drink.
Yeah, and it's like just the way the whole entire and then you got President Terry
Crews,
yes, and he's Mondo is the name of the drink, and just honestly, it's actually, even in that one clip they're playing, like visually, you know, a lot goes into this movie. It doesn't feel like it's like cheaply done.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, you know, when it was released, it was, I think, a movie a little bit before its time. And honestly, it only has a $2.4 million budget, but it didn't even take in $1 million at the box office. And you're saying to yourself, I think if this movie came out today, it would definitely clear at least $10 million. It would.
Oh, for sure.
I would think. But what have you been watching, my man?
So I was sucked into the TikTok sphere again and was seeing a bunch of clips of Suits. Suits, if you guys don't know, is probably one of my favorite series to watch. I started going through a rewatch of Suits again. I'm actually on the second season, almost done with that. It's a really underrated show and not for everybody. I know I tried to get Baloney into it and he couldn't really hate it or like it, but I just find the humor in it pretty funny. They do a lot of movie quotes in there too, which I really appreciate. So I've been doing a rewatch of that when I have time. And then another movie that I actually threw on the other day, I happened to see Danny DeVito, a clip from it, was Renaissance Man. A film that really doesn't get talked a lot about when they mentioned Danny DeVito and his career. Kind of an underrated flick with Gregory Hines in it, James Remar. You get Lilo Brocado, you know, Mark Wahlberg in his first role, Stacey Dash before she was crazy. You know, stuff like when he basically teaches Shakespeare to a bunch of military people. Cadets that basically are failing out and they want them to focus, and he does it through teaching them Shakespeare. Very underrated movie. A lot of comedy in it. I do love the fact when they do the little rap, a little rap for Shakespeare, and the fact when he does the Victory Tower. Gregory Hines is probably one of my favorite like performers. Like I say performer because he's, you know, he's a dancer. He's a tap dancer who's on Broadway. He's probably like one of the best that there were in terms of Broadway dancers. He's even been compared to Sammy Davis Jr. in terms of his talents. He lost way too soon, you know, to cancer, but he's just shows his talents in terms of a hard-nosed drill instructor in this film. And him and DeVito play off each other pretty well. Really enjoyable film. Bill Rago is Danny DeVito's character, and I really enjoyed it. Have you seen it?
Number one, both of these you've got me for I haven't seen. For Renaissance Man, though, I mean, I do remember when it came out. To your Gregory Hines comments, Gregory Hines was awesome. There's actually was a student this year who I was like, man, if they were doing like a Gregory Hines biopic when he was young, he would be a great Gregory Hines. And everyone's like, who's Gregory Hines? But that's when I looked up the cast and saw James Remar and saw all of them. This is definitely one I wanted to check out, and I wanted to hear your review of it first before checking it out. But Danny DeVito, during this time period, there was a movie that came out that me and my mom watched. It was called Jack the Bear, where he was like a father and he was like taking care of his. But like DeVito's got some pretty cool movies that kind of slip in, like Renaissance Man. That Hoffa was pretty good too, which he directed. But like this early '90s DeVito, it's cool that you checked this one out.
Yeah, Gary Sinise, Jack the Bear.
Yeah,
the bad guy. Yeah, I remember that movie too. Yeah, check it out. It's one of my brother's favorites. He always quotes it every once in a while. But it's got a lot of it's a lot of Shakespeare into it, but it's like DeVito's own twist on it. It's got some comedy in there. So I recommend it.
And to Suits really quick. I mean, Suits might be the only television show I've never watched, and I'd never even tried. So you just saying it's a good show and you like it. I mean, me and Katie have probably watched 150 something shows, so I'm willing to. We're going to give Suits a chance here because I've only heard good things.
My
supposed to be a movie even or something coming out or something. I've heard.
There's another spinoff coming out in
That's
LA.
what it is. That's what it is.
They're developing. But my brother just texted me and said, "Renaissance Man is one of my favorite films of all time. Mr. Burton needs to see it."
Oh, I tell him by next week I'll have a review. That's awesome. I love hearing that.
But Suits. It starts off slow, but the character of Louis Litt, played by Rick Hoffman, is the best character in the show. Like his character arc is the best. He's hilarious. Just like it starts off slow, but like as he develops through season 2 through 9, you'll find him hilarious. He's the best part of the show. But that's what we watched this week. Let us know what you watched over at the podcast on Twitter, or let us know actually in the comments on YouTube if you're watching live or you see this on a playback. But Tone, before we go into our summer blockbusters, we had some big news released this week from the Marvel landscape for our news and rumors. Do you want to get into it?
Yeah. Before we get into it here.
Oh, Mr. Stark, you have been described by some as a Da Vinci for our time.
Rumors, which we're starting up here. We got some rumors going around. Robert Downey Jr. is in talks, or possibly he would be open to returning to the Marvel Universe. A quote that he came out with is he says, "It's just crazily in my DNA. Probably like me character I've ever played. Even though he's way cooler than I am," the actor explained. "I've become surprisingly open-minded to the idea. Between Nyad and Night Country, and for me, Oppenheimer, and then The Sympathizer, it really is crazy because we look pretty good. I was actually looking at the stills we were taking, making sure, do we still look kind of okay? I'm like, we look pretty good." And honestly, even just hearing that, I'm going to agree that Downey Jr., he looks good. I can attest. I sadly did not watch Suits, but I did watch The Sympathizer, which just wrapped up last week on its final thing. And Downey Jr. nailed it. My only complaint about the show was I wish there was more Downey Jr. Was that he wasn't the star of the show, but him himself, great actor. And if he was coming back into the role, especially in the Marvel universe, I think he would be welcomed back with open arms. What do you think?
I totally think he would be welcome back. Right now, Marvel's kind of in a weird place right now, in terms of it hasn't really had, it had Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and then it's kind of had some misses on the local scene in terms of TV shows. The new Captain America didn't really respond too well. Loki has done well, but there's still like a lot of pushback what Marvel is releasing. Even Doctor Strange, the second one, didn't really have as much fanfare as I thought it was going to have. The Marvels kind of bombed at the box office. So it's looks like he could possibly come back and restore order in terms of there. But the thing that's kind of sticking out to me is Kevin Feige came out a while ago and said that he didn't want to bring Tony Stark back due to how the way it ended, and he didn't want it to make it seem like his ending in Endgame was just basically a waste of time, which I kind of understand. But since they're going through this multiverse, it could possibly bring him back. I mean, they brought the Gamora back in, Guardians 3 as a different character. I mean, she's the same character but different personality. They could possibly do this again with, Robert Downey Jr. I mean, he's dropping hints. Secret Wars comes out. There's rumors that he might appear, so we don't know yet. So we have to wait and see. But if he's back, I mean, definitely will bring a bunch of people back to watch the films again.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's for this particular role, earned the right to do pretty much carte blanche if he wanted to. I think he would be welcome back. If he didn't want to and left it where it is, I think he would be okay too. He's pretty much, that's what's cool about the role. And another great actor, per side, and that's why sometimes there are big comments that have been made of like, there isn't a lot of good acting maybe in the Marvel universe, but that's just not true because it's filled with lots of great actors who do lots of great work, and he's one of them.
I don't agree with those sentiments. I love Martin Scorsese, and him saying that Marvel is not cinema to me, I think is BS because it's on the screen. Whether it's a B movie, an F movie, a D movie, an E movie, a shitty movie, it's still on screen. It's still a theater. It's still movies.
I'm going to take. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, and Tarantino agrees with him, and I still say the same thing. Like,
well, I'm going to take a quote that Tarantino said this last week, which not about this, something else. He said that movies generally were made for the working class people. He said a movie was supposed to be like $1, not be priced out where you were. Now the movie prices are closer to concert tickets, and if you're going to the opera. I think of the complaint, and I could be wrong, but for me, if somebody's complaining about Marvel movies and how many, it's because, well, if you got to pay big ticket prices, you want to see you mix it up. Like back in the day, me and my friends would go to right in the summer, which we're going to talk about in a second. We're going to go to a movie and we'd see 1 or 2 movies, and it would be under $10. Used to have a student movie card at the AMC right here. It was $4.75 to go. But that being said, I don't think anything about the movies. I think you like what you like and you enjoy what you enjoy. But I think I'm hearing a lot too that the new generation doesn't want to sit in movies anymore. They want TikTok. They want the minute, 2 minute, 3 minute. They don't have I want to sit in a movie theater and let the story play out type of vibes. That could be a problem too. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think it's why streaming has become so popular. It's because they can sit and watch when they want on their time and play it back. And which is kind of funny because movies have become longer.
But that's it too. I mean, I recently watched there's a brand new movie on Netflix that everyone's really typing up that came out this past weekend, and I watched it and I did not see the hype of it. We might have I don't get me wrong, I also watched the new Godzilla, though not the new one, the one with the Kong, but the one with, it's only 11 million budget. A lot of people are talking about the graphic. Did you see the newest Godzilla yet?
-1 or
-1.
No, I have not seen -1. I did see Kong versus Godzilla, though, the newer.
I personally, I have some different, which I'm not going to share now, but I have different feelings about that movie. I think movies are meant to just be entertaining, and we're going to talk about some of them right now, and they're also meant to be really good. And like those Marvel movies are hugely entertaining, and they're good, and you get a lot of it, all of it. Where like Taxi Driver is only going to appeal maybe to like me or you. It might not appeal to our wives. Where I think the 4 of us could go see a Marvel movie and everyone could be okay. I don't know. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I look at it like Marvel. Like my son is really into Marvel. Jen, who is like, she's into movies, but not like me. She'll watch Marvel with him because he's really into it, and it's gonna be like, and it's kind of interesting somewhat. I can understand the fatigue too. Like Marvel just shelled out movie after movie after movie, and people could get fatigued from it. But also, we're seeing that now they want the old stars back. Like there's been a lot of glamoring for Downey Jr. to come, that they want a standalone Hulk movie, which is probably never going to happen. But stuff like that. Even rumblings of bringing Scarlett Johansson back. But
let's say we're running Marvel Studios. I'm personally, for me, I'm not seeing a problem with green lighting a new Hulk. If we're green lighting Doctor Strange too, I just don't see it. I think the Hulk would be now more than ever with Mark Ruffalo.
I think it's
way bigger than Doctor Strange too.
I think it's more of a licensing issue. It's not really
is it?
Yeah. I don't think Marvel. Yeah, I don't think Marvel owns the licensing. I think.
I didn't know. See, I didn't know.
Which is why I think they have. I forget who owns licensing to the Hulk. I can find out right now. But from what I understand, Marvel can only use the Hulk in sub characters, meaning they can only use him as a sub role. Universal Pictures owns him, So they only can use him as a sub role in terms of as a sub character in plots. He can't be the main character,
Gotcha. I did not know that. Interesting.
She-Hulk was trying to be like that transition into maybe getting a new Hulk out there, but that was crapped on.
Great information. That's
Yeah.
excellent right there. I did not know that. I thought it was only because of the stench of the last two that they couldn't do it, which I was like, the last one wasn't as bad as, unfortunately, we're going to roll into summer movies here. Both of these were summer movie releases, and I saw them both, during the summer. And Ang Lee's, I mean, there was so much hype for that movie, and it's not. Let me put it to you this way: if you're looking for some laughs, it's just not. I don't know.
It's well, for one, Ang Lee, U of I grad, ILL. Shout out to him. When I saw the movie, Eric Bana, the one thing that sticks out to me about the movie, of everything about the Hulk, the one thing that sticks out to me about that movie is when he's shaving. That I don't know why. It's just because the razor going across his skin. It just like it annoyed me in the theater. Made me feel uncomfortable to where it's always stuck with me. That's the only part that like really sticks out to me about that movie.
Not that I like that you were uncomfortable. I like that something as like that minute would do. Hey, and that's what it is. What it was for me was him running in the desert and doing the huge jumps and stuff like that. And like, if you look back at it now compared to what the graphics look like now, looks dated.
Yeah, it looks dated, but I mean, not everything's gonna age well. But hopefully they work something out. Universal, Marvel's probably not gonna pursue it, but maybe they'll work something out. I mean, Spider-Man was something that everybody thought was never gonna happen because Sony owns them, and now there's talks about another trilogy coming out with Tom Huddleston. So that's Tom Holland. So you never know what in the future, but hopefully something gets worked out. But I would love to see Robert Downey Jr. back in Marvel. Hopefully he comes back. One of my favorite actors. And he's also an Oscar winner now. So
sure is.
But Tone, let's get into our meat and potatoes of the show. We are going into our summer blockbusters for so we decided to go through a list. Usually we do our list show when we have our deep dive and then our list show. So last time we had Beverly Hills Cop for our deep dive, and now we're doing our list show. And I wanted to come up with some movies that we haven't really talked about on the previous shows that are summer blockbusters. I know you came up with some good ones that even I was like, whoa, wait. And they made money, which surprised the hell out of me. So I was like, oh man.
It's more of the stuff, like, and you too. I mean, the only one out of all, well, we won't say what they are, but one of them, there's only one out of these 9 movies I don't got like something to talk about, because I've like, that was like, it makes me sad because it used to be almost like a rite of passage. As soon as summer came, man, movies were released and I saw them all. I wouldn't miss one. Like, and that's why some of these you're like, huh? Because honestly, a lot of these movies were hyped up to be big, and it just didn't happen that way.
Yeah, it just didn't happen. But let's get into our first one, my friend.
Let's do it.
All right, pop quiz. Airport, gunman with one hostage. He's using her for cover. He's almost to a plane. You're 100 feet away. Jack.
Shoot the hostage.
1994's Speed, released June 10th, 1994. So released tomorrow will be the 30-year mark. It was directed by John DeBont, who also directed Twister, The Haunting, Speed 2, and Lara Croft Tomb Raider, Cradle of Life. So that's a sequel to the Lara Croft films. It stars Keanu Reeves, Dennis Hopper, Sandra Bullock, Jeff Daniels, and Alan Ruck. The movie had a box office of $350 million on a $30 million budget. This film won 2 Oscars. So it won Best Sound and Best Effects, which is kind of crazy because now Best Effects are mostly CGI. But yeah, I remember when this movie came out. It's a movie that kind of boosted Keanu Reeves up to superstardom. It got Sandra Bullock on the map. Keanu Reeves was coming off Point Break, and he was kind of on that trajectory up, and this kind of like exploded him to superstardom, to where he became like that, character be playing in the future films of which eventually be cast in The Matrix. I love this film. Dennis Hopper, I think, plays a great character in terms of somebody who is not just evil. He's just a person that just snapped. And one of the things that sticks out to me is the pop quiz that he always said. That's always said in here. Pop quiz. That was like a big thing when this movie came out. Pop quiz. Everybody was making fun of it. The bus going he has to go over 55 miles an hour. And it's a ridiculous, plot, but it fit well, and I really, really enjoyed it. What about you, Tom?
Um, we talk a lot about the De Niro's and the Pacinos and these, but Dennis Hopper's awesome. Like Dennis Hopper's got some really awesome movies, and I got good because I'm thinking about it. The scene that I like the most, one of them is when he finds out that he was tricked on that video camera, and he's like, "No, no." I like the way he acts in this movie. I like you played at the beginning. I think it's huge Jeff Daniels fan. I think it's cool he makes, he's in the movie. I remember specifically like being on a vacation in Wisconsin Dells when this movie came out. And I also remember that Christmas when the VHS, I got it for Christmas. I was thinking earlier before we started, VHS covers, like the brand new ones, they used to have like a smell. I could still remember. And this movie just all around was good. You're also going to find me as somebody who luckily got to see part 2 in the summer when it came out. And I left the theater loving part 2 also for Defoe. But that being said, it was a great pick that you picked because it definitely is what I would think is a definition of definitely a blockbuster, and it did really well.
Defoe would actually be a really good show. We should do him sometime this year.
Maybe that could be the next 5 and 5 or something like that.
Yeah, we could maybe do a 5 and 5 with Defoe. But Sandra Bullock learned to drive a bus for this film. She passed her test in her first attempt. I love the fact that when I was doing research for this, can we point out how large the steering wheel? Yes, it totally is. It reminds you of the old school buses from Sesame Street when they show, or like back in the 50s. It was totally like out of place, but it is pretty funny. But I found it funny when I was doing research for this film that the ending where they do the subway scene was actually, they didn't have enough money to film that. So when they shot it when they showed it to audiences basically for their test groups, they loved the film so much they were showing them storyboard animations.
Really?
To kind of like show, what the ending would be. And the people in the theater loved it so much that they secured funding to actually go and shoot them properly. Which shows those test groups, I guess, do have some weight in terms of how things are going. And that the rest, as they say, is history. Also, I found that there's a character named Harry who's played by Jeff Daniels, was originally supposed to be played by Ed Harris, and he was actually supposed to be the bad guy. It's supposed to be a twist where he was the man that was doing all the bad things. When Jeff Daniels signed on, he basically kept it as Jeff Daniels being his friend and keeping Dennis Hopper as the bad guy because it said it was just too much going on with the plot, and they, I guess, couldn't believe that Jeff Daniels would be a bad guy in terms of the way he was acting. But Jeff Daniels is a great, very, very talented actor, and he's very underrated.
I like the introduction of Sandra Bullock to the film community. I mean, this is one of her big introductions. I think she did a great job in the movie. I also think it's the plot is, I'm not going to call it it's a thin plot. It's an easy plot, which is cool, which is what makes it sometimes a summer movie. You don't want, which I know, Inception, which I think was a summer movie. You want something light on your feet. You can go in there, and this movie delivers what I would think to be that 90s action that a lot of people craved.
Yep, totally 90s action, in and out. You see a Keanu Reeves doing 90% of his stunts. And it's, like you said, Dennis Hopper is excellent. He was kind of like all over the 90s and the 80s, Blue Velvet, Hoosiers. And then you go to the 90s, he does this film. He does a couple films we have on the list coming up. He does
Super Mario
Brothers as Koopa. Just totally out there, and such an underrated actor, lost to again way too soon. But yeah, that's my first pick, my man.
Great pick.
Let's roll into your pick.
All right.
The 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
1996's Independence Day. It was released on July 3rd, 1996. It's directed by Ronald Emmerich, Ronald Emmerich, who also directed Stargate, The Universal Soldier classic, The Patriot, White House Down, The Day After Tomorrow, and 1998's Godzilla. Yeah, that was a bad one. The movie stars Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, Rob Lagosha, Judd Hirsch, and Bill Pullman. The box office of this film was a whopping $817 million on a $75 million budget. Tolan, tell us why you picked this one.
Earlier when I posted one before we were coming to the show, we were talking about summer movies, and Shankster, who's a fan of the show, brought up that this was one he remembered a lot. Honestly, what I remember a lot of is the picture on the poster here of the ship, and remember just being like enthralled because I loved aliens and what is this about? It was a lot of secrecy before it came out too. In 1996, you didn't know what the alien looked like when you saw it. You didn't really know what the plot was. All you saw were the trailers. And honestly, I think as a summer blockbuster goes, for being pretty big, and Will Smith too. I mean, I think this is pretty much, because this is before Men in Black. This is before other summer movies. And to Godzilla, the reason why they got to make Godzilla was because of this movie, because of the success. And I talk about this with a lot of people. The success of this movie gave these guys the keys to the kingdom, and they got to rewrite what Godzilla looked like because of the success of this movie, which wouldn't happen today. If we had the success, they wouldn't just let us remake what Godzilla look like, just because they'd be like, that's not a good idea. But back then, in the 90s, you could roll with that. The clip that you played right there, I knew if this was baseball, I knew you were going to throw that pitch right there. And it's funny that you play that because Katie is I'm laughing what Sam says here.
I'm going to talk about this full volume so he doesn't get some more views. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. But what makes me laugh is that part right there. I remember when I first started dating Katie, we were in like my room downstairs, and my dad would watch that movie at full volume at like midnight. So my mom would be like, Glenn, can you please turn down the television? And that part right there, we're like, we celebrate our Independence Day. It's etched in my mind forever. And that's why I picked it, really.
Yeah, that scene actually, when he delivered that speech, according to the people there, the actual crew and everybody just started cheering with like, oh man, this is like epic. And it was like an epic speech that he delivered. And it was also filmed in front of an old airplane hangar that once housed the Enola Gay, which actually dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima 50 years earlier on August 6, 1945. Interestingly, the crowd was not scripted to start cheering. Bill Pullman's delivery of the speech was so good that they started applauding and cheering on their own, and the filmmakers kept it in the movie. That's pretty crazy. That just shows like his talent of delivery. I also found it very interesting that they originally Dina Devlin, who wrote the film, and Ronald Emmerich, who actually directed it, had envisioned a African American lead for the role of Stephen Hiller, and they specifically wanted Will Smith because they saw him in 6 Degrees of Separation, which is an underrated film. I'm not a huge fan of Will Smith, but he does have some good films that are out there. 6 Degrees of Separation is one of them. Up until then, he was known for just rapping in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. This film launched his career, and if they couldn't find him to do so, if he wasn't able to actually do this role, there was another person actually they were thinking about doing as a backup, and that was Eddie Murphy.
Oh, wow.
So playing back to, last week's show of
Connections,
of Beverly Hills Cop, Eddie Murphy was in there. They also considered Keanu Reeves, Johnny Depp, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and William Baldwin for the part. I would have loved Van Damme in the part because it's just Van Damme, and it made me laugh. And Matthew Perry was actually offered the role of Captain Jimmy Raven Wilder, but he pulled out the last minute. His dad actually plays a secret agent in the film, which I thought was pretty crazy. Robert Lagosha modeled his character of the general after Patton. You could totally see that in there. It just has so many good character actors in this film, and it's actually an enjoyable film. Now, I did not see the new one. Did you?
What'd you say?
Did you see the new one?
Oh yeah, I was what's the word, tasked with going with my father to see it. And him being a huge fan of the first one, he
Uh-huh.
he liked the second one equally, just like he liked the thing when they did the new one of the. He is very nostalgic, and the movie's very nostalgic feeling. So if you're into the nostalgia, you're gonna love the movie. If you're looking for something new or different, the only thing that was different or new is that they could use more graphics for the aliens. Where in the first movie, it was a lot of curtain of what the aliens were, because as you can see, when it was like out there in the desert, like they didn't do much with it. It was like either in the ship or it was out there. There's not a whole lot of just Alien by itself in Independence Day. Like there isn't, like where in the second one, there's like a scene where it's like aliens where they're all like running around in the desert and stuff like that with like computer graphics. But again, nostalgia reasons, it's not as good as the original. But then again, Dean Devlin and Roland, their movies, as you can see after this one, a lot of them are like, I like Day After Tomorrow, but is it a good movie? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if 2012 or whatever that movie was. I don't know if that's a good movie. I don't know. But this movie, I thought it was pretty entertaining for summer movies. And you brought up Will Smith. I mean, I saw Men in Black. I saw Wild Wild West. This guy was summer the best for a couple years there. And
yeah, he was Mr. Summer Blockbuster. This is his first one in the run that he had. Like you said,
I think Wild Wild West punched him a little bit back down to earth, but like
Men in Black came after this. Yeah. Bad Boys.
Bad Boys. Yeah, Bad Boys was definitely good.
But one scene that sticks out to me is when he's dragging the alien across the desert, and he goes, "What the hell is that smell?" And apparently, they were dragging it, and this was filmed in Great Salt Lake in Utah, and it's home to tiny crustaceans called brine shrimp. And when they die, the bodies sink to the bottom of the lake, which is very deep, and they kind of decompose, which makes it stink. So he didn't know this, and that's what he was smelling, and nobody told him what it was, and that's what he ad-libbed that part. What the hell's that smell? which is pretty funny. But yeah, it definitely blew him up, and made him into what he is now. Great movie. I do love the fact with the dad that was claimed he was probed, and that he basically turns it around to try to kill the aliens, which is pretty funny. He's also the guy in Major League 2, the fan.
Yeah, we're just gonna call him the guy.
Yeah, the guy in Major League 2. He's a hilarious actor.
He is, he was, or I should say he was a hilarious actor. And his brother, I had something to say about him, a couple. Quaid's brother,
Yeah.
All right.
Quaid.
Blab about Mars.
Yeah, but let's get into the next one, man.
I'd like to take his face off.
1997's Face Off, released on June 27th, 1997. It's directed by John Woo, who also directed Hard Boiled, A Better Tomorrow, A Better Tomorrow 2, The Killer, the original Bullet to the Head, Broken Arrow, Hard Target, Mission Impossible 2, and Wind Talkers. The film stars Nicolas Cage, John Travolta, Joan Allen, Alessandro Nivola, and Gina Gershwin. The movie had a budget of $80 million and a box office of $245 million. This is a film that basically put John Woo on the map for the American cinema audience. He did Hard Target with Van Damme, and that film did get some publicity, bring him over to the States. But this film actually put him on the map as a superstar action director. He was known for Hong Kong films, for not mostly crime films with Chow Yun-fat. The Killer, Hard Boiled, great films. If you haven't seen them, I highly encourage you to watch them. A Better Tomorrow 1 and 2 are great, and Bullet to the Head are great films. It just kind of like projected him to worldwide superstardom. You have two elite actors and Nicolas Cage before he went into poverty, and John Travolta, fresh off Pulp Fiction, doing basically a reappearance of themselves as acting as each other. And I found it pretty crazy that Nicolas Cage actually turned down this role until he found out he would actually be playing the good guy more than the bad guy. And Travolta was obviously the bad guy. This film was actually offered to Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, wow.
when Wu was brought to direct, he decided that John Travolta and Nicolas Cage would be better suited for the roles. And the studio, of course, wanted Michael Douglas and Harrison Ford and Bruce Willis and Alec Baldwin. And then they said, okay, how about Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal, which would have been funny because they hate each other. And then maybe Denzel Washington and Wesley Snipes, or maybe Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. Can you imagine Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in Face Off?
Oh my Lord, no. They should do it now. Look at their age now.
They just be screaming at each other. The writer got the idea from actually having a friend being in a hang gliding accident, and they had to remove most of his skin from his face for reconstruction, and they actually had to put his face back on after. So that's pretty graphic stuff to be kind of get the idea for the film. But it's a great action film. The storyline is crazy, but I mean they do face transplants today. But the storyline for the film is completely crazy. But I will give them this. You know, when you look at John Travolta and you look at Nicolas Cage, they obviously do not have the same body types or anything. In the film, they actually explain how the transformation happens. They tell John Travolta he'll lose his love handles and they'll fix his body to where he can actually look like Castor Troy, which I thought was very, nice little, at least give a little piece to believability. But
Definitely.
I love the film. What do you think about it, Tone?
Oh, I think it's again a classic. Big fan of Wu's movie before this, Broken Arrow. Again, just all of that and all the other movies you mentioned before. Because of course, after seeing these two, I was graced in 7th grade with a buddy who moved into town, and he joined our class. And the first thing I remember him saying to me was like, "You ever see Taxi Driver?" And like from that point forward, I mean, I felt like I went to school and I learned about John Woo and I learned about Hard Boiled. And then this is when Face Off ends up coming out, like in all these movies. So like, great movie, man. Just a great action movie and a lot of awesome performances in the movie itself too, that aren't just, them too. You get a lot of Joan Allen does a good job as his wife. As you mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Nick Cassavetes, the director of Alpha Dog and The Notebook. He's in the movie as a bad guy. One of my favorite quotes is from the movie, "I can eat a peach for hours." I've used that as a joke for a long time. It's a great
I was going to
quote.
use that.
I know.
But
you used a good one, though. You used a good one. So, but that being said, I think it's a classic, man.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy that for Pollux Troy, who plays his brother, they're going to use Mark Wahlberg. I can't see Mark Wahlberg playing that role. Alessandro Nivola, who's probably more famous now for playing Dickie Montesanti from The Many Saints of Newark. Very good underrated actor. He does a great role as Pollux Troy in this film, and I can't like Mark Wahlberg. Just his voice. I can't. Oh, you know how he talks.
Oh yeah,
I can't see him like doing it as Pollux Troy. They also wanted Johnny Depp to co-star with Cage. I'm glad they went with Travolta in this film. They had really, really good chemistry, and they met a few weeks prior to try and learn each other's mannerisms to make sure it was believable. And I thought they did a very good job. John Travolta acts like a complete jagoff in this film, and it's suiting for the character he's playing, and it's believable. A lot of action. I love action films, and this is like top notch.
Again, just as you stated, both of these actors in the mid 90s, I mean, they were both on huge runs, especially after Pulp Fiction's success. And of course, I mean, Nicolas Cage, I keep wanting to watch it because it's been a long time, but that Leaving Las Vegas where he won an Oscar was right around this time too. So everyone's on the top of their game, which I think makes the movie even more awesome. Wasn't like these guys were on the lows, but it's good. Classic.
Yeah, definitely a classic film. But Tone, let's go into your next pick, my man.
I'm coming, my sweet.
Like the jacket? It keeps me safe when I'm jogging at night.
Batman will come for me.
Batman? Batman, you say? Coming for you? I'm counting on it!
I love that line. 1995's Batman Forever, released June 16th, 1995, directed by the late great Joel Schumacher, who also directed The Lost Boys, 8mm, The Phantom of the Opera, The Number 23, Phone Booth, The Client, Time to Kill, St. Elmo's Fire, and Flatliners, starring Jim Carrey, Val Kilmer, Nicole Kidman, Chris O'Donnell, and Tommy Lee Jones. This movie had a box office of 336 million on a budget of 100 million. Tell me why you picked this film, Tone.
For the show today, I try to think outside of the box. Of course, if it was like, what are your favorite or what are your best, I probably would have went with the very first one with Michael Keaton because I saw that one at the movie theater. But this movie, we're never probably going to do a standalone episode of just Batman Forever. So I figured this would be a good time to slide this in. First off, the soundtrack. Again, I'm 13 years old, 12 years old, and it isn't Kiss from a Rose that sticks in my head. It's U2 song, Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me. A really awesome, actually, song for a band that not a lot of times they don't get the credit. I think sometimes they get the credit, but a lot of people don't like them also, which it's a really good song for the soundtrack. The soundtrack as a whole was really successful, obviously, with Seal too, Kiss from a Rose. But that being said, the performances, I always enjoyed Val Kilmer's performance as Batman. I didn't have a problem with it. Jim Carrey, top of his game, being able to play a bad guy in this movie. Although I think about of course, Robin Williams was possibly maybe going to play the Riddler in this. Nicole Kidman, now with the AMC commercials, now it's time to go back and watch this movie again. But I thought it was a good, and I remember specifically how huge it was being marketed for the summer. I think that's the real reason why I picked it. Was a clear memory in my head. This was a movie that was being told that was going to be super, super huge. Now, did it end up probably being as big as that they thought it was going to be? I don't know how the numbers work. Probably not. But that being said, they still made their money back, and it's a bit of fun at the show.
Yeah, it totally made their money back. Unfortunate is that it's set up for the next film, which of course Schumacher has said it had a lot of studio influence. The nipple suits, 10 out of 10, no notes. Thank you, Sam. But in terms of Two-Face, the character was originally played by Billy D. Williams in the first two Batman, Batman and then Batman Returns, the ones by Tim Burton. He accepted the role because he knew that down the road, Harvey Dent would become eventually Two-Face. He had in his clause in his contract that basically told him he can be Two-Face in the sequels, but they had to buy him out to cast Tommy Lee Jones. And the reason Tommy Lee Jones took the role is because his 11-year-old son loved Two-Face. And, there's a lot of turmoil on this set. Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones didn't get along. Joel Schumacher and Val Kilmer didn't get along, but Val Kilmer and Jim Carrey apparently became great friends doing this film.
Cool.
Tim Burton was slated to direct. Mickey Dolenz was originally considered to be the Riddler. And like you said, when he dropped out, they eventually brought in possibly Robin Williams to play the Riddler. But Williams was actually very, very offended because Robin Williams was used as kind of like that bait to get other actors to take roles. He was originally used for the Joker and the original Batman that Burton had directed, and that was basically as a way to get Jack Nicholson to sign on for the part. And he didn't like that, so he said no, he's not going to do it. Leonardo DiCaprio was actually offered the role of Dick Grayson, didn't like the viewpoint or the view of the story from Joel Schumacher, which is another reason why Michael Keaton turned down the role. It's just like so much turmoil going on in this film that it's crazy that this film got made, and actually it's not that bad. People who lobbied for parts, Mark Wahlberg was considered for the part of Robin. Again, another part I can't see him playing. Matthew Broderick was considered for the role of the Riddler. Michael Jackson was pushing to be the Riddler in this film, and they turned it down. Also, the whole story of this film, like the whole plot tone, is totally different in Schumacher's version. It was originally supposed to be a 3-hour version, and the reason that Bruce Wayne is going to Dr. Chase Meridian is because he loses his memory, and that is what's going on right now. Like as he's going in the film, it's kind of like played, but it's cut out a lot, and it's not as prominent in the film because the scenes are cut out. But in the original, that's what it was supposed to be. That's why he's going to see her, and that's why he goes through those sessions of seeing the bat and like finding himself. Ice Cube, the rapper Ice Cube, actually came out and said, when this was put on HBO Max, released the Schumacher cut, which I thought was hilarious. And he goes, "People want more Val Kilmer. Maybe they'll do it. I
Yeah.
don't know." But it's a great film. I love the visuals in it. I love when he goes and fights the gang that has the black lights. That's one of the cool parts of the film. And it always also cracked me up that before that scene, you see En Vogue try to hit on Chris O'Donnell as the girls that go around his car.
That was good.
Which makes you laugh. But it's a fun film. I mean, Jim Carrey does an excellent job. Tommy Lee Jones is okay as Two-Face. It is what it is. It's an action film that suspends belief, and I enjoyed it.
The movies with Tim Burton, they had like a dark sheen over them, where like there's just a little bit of more light in this movie than those other movies, which gives it a different feel, not a better feel, just a different feel. Where the next one, he takes it really too over the board, and which again, I'll never forget. There's 4 movies where I got screamed at by someone in the movie theater. Batman and Robin was one of them, where the guy looked at me and my friends and went, "Shut the F up!" And I was like, "Dude, this movie sucks, man. Why are you yelling at us?" I was like an 8th grade.
Tony, you were a terror.
I was
theaters,
a real
man.
terror talking during Batman and Robin.
And Sam says, "Wait, this isn't a good one with Arnold and Uma." Sam, I watched that film recently with my wife and my son, who's a big Batman fan, and even my son, the 8-year-old, was like, "I don't want to watch this anymore." And Arnold Schwarzenegger's puns in that film is the best part of it, though. But yeah, great pick, Tone. Great pick. A Batman film that doesn't get talked about a lot, but Kilmer did a pretty decent role as Batman.
I agree.
But let's move on to our next one, my friend.
Battle is the great redeemer, the fiery crucible in which the only true heroes are forged. The one place where all men truly share the same rank, regardless of what kind of parasitic scum they were going in.
2013's Edge of Tomorrow released on June 6, 2014, actually. I don't know why it says 2013, but it was released in 14. It's directed by Doug Liman, who also directed Tony's favorite remake, Roadhouse, 2024. American-made Jumper, Go, which is a great film, Swingers, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. The film stars Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt, Brendan Gleeson, and Bill Paxton. Oh my God, Sam, you're killing me here. The movie had a box office of $370 million on a budget of $178 million. I picked this film. It's to kind of thinking outside the box, Tony. It's one of those films that I actually discovered this probably late 2018, actually on HBO Max at the time. I haven't seen it. I saw Tom Cruise is in it. I popped it on. I really enjoyed it. It's become like a nice little, blockbuster for me to go back to and watch something totally different. Yes, it involves aliens, but it's one of the things that really stands out to me is that Tom Cruise doesn't play the know-it-all in this film. He plays somebody that's kind of like a wimpy guy that basically has to learn how to adapt. And Emily Blunt's character is just a complete badass in the film. I really like the story. I love the design of the initial characters, which is, doing research in this, I found out Guillermo del Toro actually had the initial designs of them and doing sketches for them, which they took some of the influence of it, which I can totally understand now why they look the way they do. And he's a master in terms of putting visual things in his mind to the audience and showing how like creatures look and whatnot. I love his designs on all his stuff. This is a mix of Groundhog Day and Starship Troopers. Is the best way I can describe this film. And it's based off a book that was actually a Japanese novel with the same kind of premise in it. And it's just an enjoyable ride. It's very interesting. It's a lot of action and a pretty good story to go along with it. What'd you think of it?
I liked it a lot. For a long time, they've been talking about doing a sequel. Hopefully it maybe one day it does come to fruition. That being said, I'm under one of those people that, like, honestly, I'm right here. I could be wrong. You could throw one out right now, but like, I could find something positive in any Tom Cruise movie. And it could range from, I could find something positive to this movie's really awesome. And this movie's really awesome. He's got a couple others during this time period too. Recently, within the last couple months, I rewatched the first Jack Reacher. It's actually a lot of fun. Second one wasn't as good as the first one. It didn't have the same feel, but again, Tom Cruise has worked with great directors. I think a lot of people know that he can do a lot of different things. This movie isn't just an action movie, as you stated. Just like Groundhog Day, there's a point for the ground. Like he's trying to learn something, and that's what's cool about this movie is that you learn something, I think, along the way too.
Yeah, and take away Tom Cruise's personal craziness outside. Like he has a lot of enjoyable films. This one, of course, he was really passionate about and wanted to have more of a realistic look in it. He wanted to get rid of CGI. So the suits that they use, actually, like the one picture you're showing right now, is actually a real built suit that he had to wear that weighed about 125 pounds with everything on it, which is crazy. He put a lot of effort into this to where he came to the film a couple months early just to help design the costumes. So that's kind of cool that he gets so passionate behind the film and the story that he wants to put his own little spin on it, which I thought was kind of cool. And Sam, to your question, does he unnecessarily run in this film? Yes, he runs in this film. Tom Cruise actually has in his contract that he runs in all his films, and I'm not lying. That's actually a real. Yeah, he actually has it written into his contract that he would run in his films just to show, because he's pretty fast. I guess he'd like to show that off. That he runs in all his films.
Oh, that's cool.
So, pretty crazy stuff. Brad Pitt was originally considered for the role of Bill Cage. I'm kind of glad he wasn't put in there. I do love Brendan Gleeson in this film. He plays a complete asshole. And the story just goes back and forth. Like, you don't know what's really going on until they explain it later into the film. And I do love that aspect of it. Just a great sci-fi film. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's definitely, it's on Max. So if you have Max, it's free. Although, of course, Max isn't always free, but it's free on Max if you have it. Totally, like I said, it's Starship Troopers with Groundhog Day. Basically,
I've watched every movie with Bill Paxton, and I think you should out there too. So if you don't like Tom Cruise, watch it for Bill Paxton. This house that I live in, we honor the Bills, Bill Paxton and Bill Pullman, and we've already honored both of them today. So thank you, my friend.
Yes, two great Bills. But yeah, check this out if you haven't seen it. Sam says he puts on his light up Skechers and goes. Yes, he sure does, Sam. Gets paid millions of dollars to do so. But yeah, if you haven't seen this one, check this one out. It's definitely worth it. But let's go into your next film, my man.
Let's do it.
I don't know what your story is, Chip Douglas, but I'm gonna find out.
Well, don't dig too deep. You might get burned by the molten lava.
1996, The Cable Guy, released June 14th, 1996. It's the only film directed by Ben Stiller that he did not star as the main star in. It stars Matthew Broderick, Jim Carrey, Jack Black, Ben Stiller, and Leslie Mann. This one surprised me, Tom, because I thought this film lost money. This film actually made $102 million on $47 million budget. Tell me why you picked this one.
This to me is my favorite Jim Carrey movie, so I'll start there. I'll also start that I remember it was a summer. It was super hot, and in the same day, I think it was this, and I saw it's with Charlie Sheen. It's called The Arrival. It's an alien movie, and it was like we had to cross this busy street to go to both theaters. But the second one was The Cable Guy, and a lot of my humor is somewhere between this and Airplane and like Naked Gun. So like there's a lot of dark humor in this movie I enjoy. Ben Stiller's part that he does play in this movie is one of the most hilarious because he plays it to in his version of a straight. He's trying to play the Menendez brothers killers, but his version on TV. Jack Black, I love. There's so many movies like Jack Black is in before he is famous that like he gets. One of them is the sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer that I watched the other night, where he played the cool Jamaican guy who is just hilarious in that movie. But again, the humor in this movie, Matthew Broderick, I like how serious he is. Another big comedy movie I'm a fan of Matthew Broderick in is Election. I think Matthew Broderick, but he's not like funny like Jim Carrey's funny. He's like funny because he's reacting. It's his reaction to everything. Like by the end, he's just like my favorite line. And I've said this to so many people, not as a joke, but like, I just don't have any more time in my life for another best friend. And the way he says it to Jim Carrey, but again, just really enjoy it. Remember when it came out.
Yeah, totally worth it. I really enjoyed this film as well. It's just crazy that it made money. I thought it always bombed at the box office. But it didn't.
What they do is compare it. It's kind of like Batman Forever. They're not comparing it as a success because it didn't make money. They're comparing it as like against Ace Ventura or Dumb and Dumber. It was not as good as big as that, but it still made money. And in today's world, you look back, it could have been a lot worse. I think they even call it a cult classic a little bit too.
Yeah, it's it's a funny film. I always love the fact when he sings the Jefferson airplane. Don't you want somebody to love? That part cracks me up. This film was first brought to mind with the idea of having Chris Farley play the lead role, and it was actually between this and Black Sheep. Farley wanted this film, but he couldn't work it out to get Black Sheep on the back burner and had to do that film. So unfortunately for him, and Judge Apatow is actually he's credited as a producer in this film, but he actually did a lot of rewrites for it. This is the film he met his wife, Leslie Mann, and if you haven't seen any of the other films, she's always in all his films mostly.
She's great. I like her a lot.
This is 40 is probably one of my wife's favorite films in terms of comedy. But yeah, it's kind of out there, to the point where Gene Siskel said that this was Jim Carrey's best movie since The Mask. So you and Gene Siskel got something going, Tone. I like this film. It cracks me up. It's
Andy Dick has one of the most greatest lines where he's like, "Welcome to medieval times." Just like the way that whole thing goes down. And the real reason I wanted to include this, because we're going to include this because we talked about Silence of the Lambs earlier on the show. His whole, as you see in the picture here, when he puts the bacon on his face, Silence of the Lambs. It's dark comedy, though. I mean, it's not like Ace Ventura. It's not like The Mask. And I think from what I was gathering, like in another world, they even wanted to make it darker than it was, but they just, I think in that time period, couldn't do that. Earlier, you brought up Owen Wilson. He's got a small little role in it. Also, a great part is the part where it's a George Segal. When they're playing a porno password in the living room or whatever. It's just so, when what's his name gets mad, Matthew Broderick, it's great. I picked it because, again, was trying to look a little bit under the radar for some of the ones that might not get talked about too often, or we're probably never going to do a full Cable Guy episode. So it was cool to talk about it.
Yeah, it's even got made fun of in The Simpsons when they go to Planet Hollywood. And it's like, oh, look, it's the script from the Cable Guy. And like Homer's like, you piece of crap script, trying to ruin Jim Carrey's career. It's just stuff like that makes me laugh. It's really not that bad of a film.
You ever see The Majestic?
Yes. That's when Jim Carrey tried to like go outside of his normal stuff.
So like that could be a little bit more of like, well, I could understand The Majestic being like that. But this movie still got a little bit.
He also did Simon Birch. Remember that film?
Yeah,
he played the older guy, older character, which is kind of random seeing him as that character. But
and Joel Schumacher, he worked with Joel Schumacher in the number 23.
Yes, he did. One things that caught my attention when doing research was that Jim Carrey was horrible at basketball, to the point that Penn Stiller just told him, "Bro, just mimic and mime it, and we'll add in VHX." To do the basketball post production. They said he could barely dribble. And then the film he dunks off Jack Black, which is hilarious.
Way Jack Black's face is when he's like gonna jump on his back or whatever. It's great.
Yeah. Good pick, Tone. Like it was totally randomly out there, but like when I saw it, I'm like, oh man, it cracked me up. And then like, oh, all our movies made money on this list. So all these movies have made money.
Well, that's good.
Usually, sometimes we pick a movie that doesn't, but this is a summer blockbuster, so we have to have some movies that make money.
We got some blockbusters.
Yeah, but good pick, Tom. Good pick.
Thanks.
All right, now let's go on to our next one.
That's it! You can take us there in a blimp! Swear you'll take us! Cross your heart! Cross it! Cross your heart! Good, you promised. No backing out. Well, see you tomorrow, kid. Bye! Adventure is out there!
2009's Up, released on May 29, 2009, directed by Peter Docter, who did Soul and Inside Out and Monsters Inc., and Bob Peterson, who wrote Cars 3. He's a voice actor. He's also wrote Finding Nemo. The film stars Ed Asner, Jordan Nagai, Bob Peterson, who is one of the directors, and Christopher Plummer. The movie had a box office of $735 million and a budget of $175 million. This movie won 2 Oscars, one for the Best Original Score and Music and for Best Animated Film of the Year, and is also nominated for Best Motion Picture of the Year, which is a rarity among Pixar films. This movie I picked was because this is actually one of the few Pixar Disney movies that actually like appeal to all sorts of ages, including older and younger. Mostly those films kind of appeal to kids and middle-aged parents. This one kind of appeals to like when you're older and like things go away and it's basically bringing new beginnings. His wife passes away. It's one of my favorite films. My son loves it. And my wife does too. So when he turns it on, we'll watch it. Great story. I love Ed Asner as the main character in here. He's hilarious. They have a lot of throwbacks and callbacks to other films, including, he has the purple soda thing cap that's actually in Toy Story. They sit by the tree in The Bug's Life. It's a cool film that has a great original story, and Doug is loved by all dog lovers. Great film to watch, and I know, and now I can see why it made so much money, and it's considered one of the greatest Pixar films there is. What do you think about it, Tom?
Amazing movie. Unfortunately, my comedian head over here, I start thinking if I was like, not good, bad, boring, and you're like, wow. Like me and my buddy, we talk about all the time about how like when someone's excited about something, like how you're explaining in this movie how awesome it is, and I just come along and I go, no, you're wrong, it's bad, and you're like, wow, what a jerk. But you're absolutely right. Everything that you said, the movie is got heart. I mean, you want to find Tone, the sugar baggie, tearing up, find him in a summer theater watching a cartoon like this, and the waterworks will come down my face. Like it was, because I feel these movies, like like you just said it, he lost his wife. The movie, what it's about, I think something about it too is that it's in this kid's world. You know what I mean? As you stated, it's in this, and that's why I think I like cartoons sometimes a lot, because you can there's something about it that's human, but there's also something about it it's in your emotions. There's a lot in this movie does that. And Pixar, honestly, just the other day, for the first time, I watched back to back Brave and Inside Out, which are again 2 movies that are again have parts in them that could make you tear up and have emotion. But Up is a classic, and when you picked it, I thought I like when we do movies and they're coming from all different directions. So I love when I look down and I see we're going to do Cable Guy, and then we're going to do Up, and then what we're going to have next. It's because all of them are great movies, but they're all great for different reasons, and this was a really good pick.
Thank you, my man. Doing some research in it, I found that the character of Charles Muntz, who's played by Christopher Plummer, voiced by him, is actually based off an executive by the name of Charles Mintz, who was with Universal Pictures in 1928, who stole Walt Disney production rights to his highly successful film Oswald the Lucky Rabbit cartoon series. I've never heard of it. This led Walt Disney to create Mickey Mouse, who soon eclipsed Oswald in popularity. So I guess joke's on him. But I guess movie's quotable too. Even Zoe has done it with our way back playback videos, Squirrel. It's one of the those quotable movies. I love it. Still holds up to today, and it's a sad movie. Pretty sure this movie is just Carl on hallucinogens while he's coping. It could be. Sorry for bringing coming upstairs. Mr. Incredible Bear taking out some Legos right now, and they can't be stopped. Yeah, my son's playing with his action figures upstairs. So if you heard banging, that's what it was. Yeah, just a great film. I really liked it.
I like movies. A lot of people run away from their feelings. I'm not that man. I will cry on an instant. And I like this movie brings that. Just recently, because I'll throw it out here if anyone's got a chance. Jim Henson's got a new documentary on Disney. Honestly, it's inspired me to even do things that I didn't know, because you just learn so much when you listen to this stuff. And that's what's great about movies, is even in our own lives as we get older, you can take some things from this movie, I think, really.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you haven't seen this one, check this one out. It's a good film. Also, the main character, Carl, looks like Walter Matthau. What they were going for. So definitely check this one out. But as we transition from a kind of a sad, summer blockbuster to a funny one and fun movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I have the only gun on board. Welcome to Con Air.
1997's Con Air, released June 6, 1997, directed by Simon West, who also directed The General's Daughter, the original Lara Croft Tomb Raider, Keen Eddie, and The Mechanic. This film stars Nicolas Cage, John Malkovich, John Cusack, Cole Melanie, McKelty Williamson, and the great Ving Rhames. The movie had a box office of $224 million on a $75 million budget. Tell them this is one of your picks. Tell me why you picked it.
Oh, because I can remember specifically. It was again, I was like somewhere with my mom, and we had to rush back because I was meeting my friends at 7 to see this movie. It was Friday. Again, Nicolas Cage with long hair. John Cusack, who we see regularly walking around town. The amazing John Malkovich, Steve Buscemi. Me and you could talk about Danny Trejo for hours. I mean, you can go on forever for everyone in this movie. And honestly, it's to me, you got The Rock, and you got Broken Arrow, and you've got we just talked about Face Off. Now this is another piece of that puzzle, which is Con Air. It's just a really good, fun time, and you better give him his bunny back. Pretty much is the way it goes.
Yeah, I was gonna use that quote for the beginning, but I figured I'd just use one that has the Con Air in it. Put the bunny back in the box. That's one thing that sticks out to me about this film is Nicolas Cage's horrible Southern accent, which he actually apparently went down to Alabama to learn. I think this film is great because it's a bunch of character actors. Steve Buscemi's in it. John Malkovich, who's can put a clinic on for acting. And it was kind of funny reading about this because Malkovich was actually very unhappy with the role because of they kept doing rewrites, so he didn't know how his character was going to turn out. And John Cusack hated this film, and he still hates it to where he barely remembers it. So I should have asked MSS to ask him about Con Air when he saw him at the Cubs game. But he only did it because he wanted to put some money that he made from this film into his own independent projects that he was doing, which is crazy. This is the first film that Jerry Bruckheimer, who's a mega producer, did it without our boy Don Simpson, who you mentioned. Remember, it was a crazy guy. Yeah, crazy guy. This movie just has it all. A lot of wackiness, a lot of action, horrible accents and explosions. And what more can you ask for? Also, it has a car that has the license plate Ass Kicker, which is great. Little side note and the story about this: John Malkovich and Samuel L. Jackson were guests on the Graham Norton Show in 2015. Norton had pointed out to them that the fact that they had never done a movie together at this time, given their extensive filmographies. Jackson said of Malkovich, "Well, none of my films are serious. He's a serious actor." And Malkovich replied, No, I was in Con Air. If that's serious, I'm an astronaut." But yeah, Cyrus the Virus, I love this film. I think, Steve Buscemi's Graham Greene, who's a serial killer, is hilarious in its own creepy way. Just like, what's wrong with them? And Nicolas Cage is like, my guess, a lot. You have Jesse Borrego, who's from Blood In, Blood Out fame, as the drug kingpin. You have, of course, Danny Trejo in the film as a prisoner. Just like all around, great cast, and it's a very highly enjoyable film. And then it's kind of crazy that Tony Scott was originally directed, asked to direct this, which it totally seems like a Tony Scott film.
It does.
But yeah, very good pick, Tone. The only thing I didn't like is that Kid Rock based American Badass on Cameron Poe.
Really?
Yeah,
I did
apparently.
not know that. Now I'm upset. And I've really been upset about Kid Rock a lot lately. So now you just made me more upset.
Yeah. Great quote here, Sam. He says, "Define irony. Bunch of men drinking and singing along to a song by a band who died in a plane crash." I was gonna use that quote, Sam, but YouTube has been a stickler on the copyright, and since Sweet Home Alabama plays, and anything, whether it be 2 seconds of a song
True.
from Skinner or anything gets flagged, it would have been muted anyway. But great quote.
Great quote.
Yeah, this is a good pick, Tone. I really like this film. I'm Cameron Poe. We used to quote this at work when I worked at Menards all the time.
Oh, it's good. It's good. Very, very quotable. Again, Cage has done some really great accents. He does this voice. He does it in this movie called Peggy Sue Got Married with Francis Ford Coppola, and it's like this high. He does a high pitched squeal type of talking. He's very eccentric, which could work in his favor as good, or sometimes
extremely. I mean, I went to the place where apparently he takes off his shoes and sits in the couch and lives there. It's like a restaurant in Vegas. Apparently,
I remember seeing that.
That's he's out there, man. But good pick, man. Good. We're getting a lot of old like Cage when he was in his heyday.
Yeah, kind of a Cage, a mini Cage honoring here tonight.
Mm-hmm. Let's go on to our next one, my friend.
No! You tricked me, you black-hearted
2009's Drag Me to Hell. That was the best quote I could find that was funny to me. How am I not in that movie? This movie was released in May 29th, 2009. It's directed by the great Sam Raimi, who did Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, the Evil Dead series. He did the original Spider-Man trilogy, For Love of the Game, The Quick and the Dead, Oz the Great and Powerful, and Darkman. The film stars Alison Lohman, Justin Long, Lorna Raver, and David Paymer. The film had a budget of $30 million and made $90 million at the box office. This is a film that when you think summer blockbuster, you really don't think of it. And horror films in general are not really considered summer blockbusters because they're usually released in the October season or the late third quarter of the year. I really enjoyed this film. It brought me back to a lot of Evil Dead feelings to it. It does have some Evil Dead like montages or homages in it in terms of like the puking and stuff like that. The graphics, the clip I just played is the goat head, basically speaking. That was in the original Evil Dead with the puppet. It really got me into like a new it's kind of like within the Evil Dead universe, but it's more related to a gypsy curse. I love it so much. I did it for the 31 Days of Horror last year for our YouTube series, which I did a little mini review on it. It's just something different. I love Sam Raimi. I love the stuff he puts out. And it surprised me to find out, even when doing research for this show, that this is the only a PG-13 film in horror that he ever did.
Wow.
So that's pretty crazy considering that it's Sam Raimi, which is predominantly his big, success is in horror. But the only thing this film was missing was Bruce Campbell, and he unfortunately couldn't do it because of commitments to Bird Notice. And this is one of the first films that he does not appear in with Sam Raimi. What do you think about it, Tone?
I thought it was, again, another great Sam Raimi movie. Big fan of another Sam Raimi movie that came out a few years before this called The Gift. Sam Raimi can work a lot off of what's the word I'm looking for? Not being Evil Dead. Like, he can do other stuff that isn't Evil Dead, which is great. And I think he does this in great fashion in this movie.
Yeah, and it's just something different. It's based off folklore and gypsy curses. It's also in Greek mythology about curses. Kind of Krampus is another thing with curses in the underworld. It's just something different and I just wanted to throw in a horror film for a summer blockbuster because why the hell not?
Horror movies are great in the summer. They're great every month. Like, that's why when it's October here at our house, we try to watch as many as we can. This one was a good pick because I remember, again, seeing it when it came out. And I think when it came out, too, it was one of those movies that you didn't know if it was going to be a huge success. because sometimes people, even now, I think if they just said Sam Raimi new horror movie, that doesn't mean that that's going to equal to a success. You need to see the trailer these days. Where back then, just seeing Sam Raimi movie, Drag Me to Hell, that name, it was going to be good.
Yeah, and a great ending too.
Great, really, really awesome ending.
Yeah. But if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a decent horror flick. It's not super scary, but it's also kind of comical too as well when she fights the old lady in the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of like when the lady's eyeball pops out. Like, there's a lot of the effects are great in the movie.
Oh, definitely.
And then for a movie that, again, I mean, it's not like you're going to look down and be like, "Wow, I know all these actors" by looking at the list. They do a great job. I'm a huge David Paymer fan.
Yes.
Coming up in October, at some point we're gonna have like a Tales from the Crypt fest. Me and you, I'll come over. We'll just watch Tales from the Crypt. There's a great one with David Paymer. We used to say his name all the time because we thought the name sounded awesome, David Paymer. But like, again, cool to see him in this movie. It was a great pick.
He's actually one of my brother's favorite films, The Sixth Man. He plays the head basketball coach. But he's funny in this film too. And he's like, "Oh, did the blood get in my mouth?"
That's it. Yes.
But yeah, if you haven't seen this one, definitely check this one out. It's worth it. It's a nice little a change of pace in terms of horror films. But Tone, let's get into our final film, which is your film, and hopefully I picked a good enough quote for you.
Oh, whatever you picked will be great.
Now, there may be some small problem in depth perception.
Well, it better not screw up my short game. Well?
Looks good. I like it. Nice. I like it better than you realize.
Much better.
What do you say, Toby? The truth.
Looks like shit.
That's why I love children, no guile. It does look like shit.
1995's Waterworld, released July 28th, 1995, directed by Kevin Reynolds, who also directed the 1991 version of Robin Hood, the 2002 version of The Count of Monte Cristo, Risen, 187, and The Beast of War. The film stars Kevin Costner, Dennis Hopper, and Janine Triplehorn. It had a box office of $264 million and a budget of $175 million. Tone, tell everybody why you picked Waterworld.
I don't like okay, let's get started with I'm not picking this movie because it's like, wow, I'm here to tell you this movie's great. I'm picking this movie because I remember when it came out in the summer. I remember a buddy of mine, for his birthday, we went and seen Waterworld. My dad dragged me like 2 or 3 times to the movie theater to see this movie. He liked this movie a lot. Honestly, like, if we're talking about other movies and they're just like stupid fun, that's what this movie is. It's stupid, but it's like, if you're sitting there and you're like, I'm not like watching this movie like, oh my gosh, this is a good movie. It's just supposed to be like stupid fun. I think I saw someone actually the other day compare it to Mad Max on the water. I don't know if that's too far, but again, I haven't, but to be fair, before doing the show, I hadn't seen this movie for a good 20-25 years. So Dennis Hopper, though, like I stated, I think he can make anything just a little bit more watchable.
Dennis Hopper makes this film because it's just it's completely out there. I can't really hate on this film because I love Cyborg, and that's a Jean-Claude Van Damme film, and it's even more low budget than this film. And this film was a lot of money. This film was $175 million to make. Kevin Costner and director Kevin Reynolds did not see eye to eye, to the point that it is rumored that Kevin Reynolds left before the film was completed and Kevin Costner took over. Kevin Reynolds is going on saying that Kevin Costner should only star in films he directs. That way he can work with his favorite actor and favorite director.
Which is funny because up until this point, they had already did 2 movies together. This was their 3rd movie. So it's like, it'd be like me saying right now to you, you know what, Yumper, find someone you could work with then. Like, we've been doing this now for
it's, Samuel L. Jackson was turned down the role of Dinkin in this film in order to play the role in Die Hard with a Vengeance. And, good for him. Kevin Costner personally invested $22 million of his own money into this film. He tried to promote it in Japan. where the army said you could park your plane here if you want, but you gotta show your film to our troops, in which he did as a promotional thing. Gary Busey and Lawrence Fishburne were actually offered the role of Deacon. They turned it down. Now, talk about batshit crazy. I know Dennis Hopper is great as Deacon,
Oh,
but
I know.
Gary Busey, come on. Like, this is post Gary Busey accident. It would have been ridiculous. The film had Kevin Costner doing a lot of his own stunts in it. It's a great concept. Not the greatest film, but it made money at the box office, just barely. It was considered a flop, but like Tony said earlier, a lot of these films that they're saying are flops really weren't. These actually made money, including advertising budget. So it's out there. This film sticks out to me for one with the eye scene, which I just played. Also with the video game that came out. I don't know if you watched the Angry Video Game Nerd, but he did a series on Virtual Boy, and Waterworld is a game that was released by Virtual Boy. Nintendo only had a few titles for Virtual Boy, and it's a very coveted, game that's released. But Virtual Boy is all shot in red, like everything's red, and they say Waterworld gives people seizures because you're so surrounded by red water. And that's all it is. So it always like stuck in my mind, just that line he was talking about it. But yeah,
Why do you
definitely
think
an awesome
people?
movie.
Why do you think people like? Is it the plot? Is it the fact it's on water? I mean, what is it?
I think it
Costner's
was
acting, a little everything.
I think it was probably the length of the film. You gotta remember too, this film came out after White Earp.
Yeah.
And Costner's star was kind of wailing a little bit. And I'm guessing people are kind of a little fatigued with it. White Earp was 3 hours long. This film was originally 3 hours long. They trimmed it down to try to, get it more for audiences. It just probably didn't hit the time. I mean, it's not horrible. Like I said, Ebert gave it, I think, 2.5 stars. He thought it was okay. I think it's just just one of those films that just didn't do too well at the box office, and people say it's crappy when it really isn't that bad. When you think
That's
of
what
like
states here. I mean, they call it like escapist fun. Like it's just you're on the water, but like I've read like most movies that take place on the water, they're not. It's a tough production. You know what I mean?
It is, and a lot of people were getting seasick during this. That's what caused a lot of the crew members to get seasick. So that caused a lot of trouble there. It's just like I think dystopia films are kind of hit or miss. Like, not every film could be Mad Max. Even Furiosa is getting hit in the box office right now, but not all films can be Mad Max. You have for every Mad Max there's a Waterworld, or there's a No Escape, or Ray Liotta, or it's just but it's not a horrible film. Like, to be honest with you, it's not like I actually like this film, and I like The Postman. And I know The Postman gets shit on a lot.
Tom Petty.
Tom Petty's in The Postman, but I don't think I think The Postman's like the concept is stupid, but I thought it was an okay movie to watch.
Well, that's what it is. It's like when you really can sit down, for the time, okay, Waterworld is bad. But now, since that time, we've gotten 30 more years of movies with awful movies. The Waterworld really isn't as bad as maybe some of other movies. Postman is great.
Ford Lincoln Mercury, yeah, President Starkey, man. No, but like, I don't know. I just think that he just gets a bad rap. Like, it's just looking back on it. Like, I remember when this film came out, people were like, "Oh, it's horrible, it's horrible." I watched them, like, it's not that bad. And then now, even like 30 years later, it's 2000, almost 30 years later. It's not. I've seen way shittier movies that made way more money than this, that are than Waterworld. So.
Again, I brought it up because I wanted to just hear a little bit, like, again, it's not a great movie, but why did this movie back then? Because there was another movie that came out around this time that actually flopped way bigger. It was called Cutthroat Island.
Oh, God, yeah.
Now, that movie, again, was a movie that it when you're trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? Trying to do something like Cutthroat Island had a box office of $16 million and $100 million. That's a lot different than this. They lost $75-80 million, where like the reality is I think when you're going into a budget like this with over 200, you got to understand for the time period, 200 million is probably now 600 million. Like, what does that budget look like if it was today's money? Better than Tombstone.
Get out of here.
But again, not the best, but it's an escape this fun. And I think when it came out, as you stated, you're right. Wyatt Earp did have his star down a little bit. I remember specifically it was a movie like, I don't think like my dad rented Wyatt Earp, but he never like returned it to the video store for some reason, and we had late fees and we had to return it. And I was like, I remember that as a kid. But again, luckily they still let him do draft day after this. So
well, I mean, he did Tin Cup out of this too, which
that's true too. Which are both.
Also, to Brian's comment, Wyatt Earp is better than Tombstone Fight Me. I have a rebuttal, and it's just 2 words: Valkimmer. But yeah, I don't think it's that bad. It is what it is. I do like the fact he chose it because it makes me laugh. And just to see that scene again with him and the eye, which is the eye is so ridiculous. It's a ridiculously fake eye. I love Dennis Hopper.
See, that's where Brian should say, I got 2 words for you, Dennis Quaid, because he's in Wyatt Earp. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. The real guy, the guy from Real Genius. Yeah, he's a great actor. The Real Genius is a great film too.
You missed the movie we talked about earlier with him.
Yeah, great films. But that's our 10 blockbusters. Hopefully, we gave you guys some stuff you haven't heard from us in the show. We appreciate you listening in on it. If you have a different list or some movies that we did not go over, that we haven't gone over in the past, let us know in the comments or send us a tweet at the Sugar Baggy or at Low Yumper or at the Show Pod on the Twitters or X. But Tone, we have a action-packed show coming up next week, my man. Let's go into our coming soon segment.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Coming soon.
Próximamente.
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
So what we got coming soon, my friend?
All right, we got a little bit of a classic coming up here.
What is it? Billy. What the hell is wrong with you?
I love Billy so much in this movie. But next week on Friday, we're going to be talking about Predator, a classic just loaded with lots of great, awesome quotes and lots of fun. And I'm excited that we're going to be going deep into that. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, I love Predator. Tony loves Predator. It also has, probably one of the biggest action stars, if not the biggest action star in movies, history. Also, I had another one that was kind of like considered the 3rd biggest at the time when the other 2 were predominantly running the movie scene in the 80s and 90s, and we'll get to that with a little tidbit.
I was going to say it earlier, but I didn't want to.
Yeah. Dylan, you son of a bitch. Yes, there will. So we will be going into a deep dive. We will go through the development. We'll break down the film with sound clips, and Tony, I'm pretty sure, will have some video clips as well for that one. So it's going to be a good time. I believe we will be back at our regular time, Tone, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
make sure.
Sure.
I think we should be back at our regular time, regular back channel, 8:00 on Friday, here at the Statistic Penguin Studios YouTube channel. So be sure to check in and watch that out. Like, it's gonna be a good one.
This is Katie's favorite line before work right here. I ain't got time to bleed. That's what she says before she leaves work. So these are great. Please tune in. A lot of great quotes will be thrown around.
Yes, sir. We're big nerds when it comes to Predator. But Tone, let's close this out, my friend, with before we get to thank yous for your Sugar Baggies song track pick of the week.
All right.
The Sugar Baggies soundtrack pick of the week.
Right. Tonight we have as a soundtrack pick of the week the Empire Records soundtrack. Recently, as recent as this past Wednesday, I talked about in depth on the Hookup on Music, Edwyn Collins' A Girl Like You, which is from this soundtrack, a really great song. Another song from the soundtrack is this classic from the Gin Blossoms.
Everything is gone till I hear it from
Lots and lots of awesome stuff, not only on the soundtrack, okay, because on the soundtrack you got the Cranberries, Toad the Wet Sprocket, Cracker, Better Than Ezra, but in the movie in general, there is a lot of music that is in the movie that was not on the soundtrack because they could not get the rights for it. I mean, in the movie, you got Guar appears in the movie doing Saddam a Go-Go. You've got a great Suicidal Tendencies song, I Shot the Devil. You've got the doing This Is the Day, Sponge, Plowed, a really great song. But just an all-around awesome soundtrack in the movie itself. Just a lot of good music in the movie. While doing research for this, it was interesting to find out that they were going back and forth who was going to release the soundtrack. Originally it was attached to Atlantic Records, but then what ended up happening was Warner Brothers distribution pack with the film producers, Regency Enterprises, allowed the soundtrack to come out on A&M Records, which that's where the Gin Blossoms were located. So for them to be part of the soundtrack with Till I Hear It From You, they needed to be included along with 4 other acts, A&M acts, to be included into the soundtrack. So again, a lot of awesome music, a really great 90s movie that I think sometimes it fits into just a lot of other cool growing up type of movies, and that's why I decided tonight to pick Empire Records.
Sweet pick, man. I haven't heard this soundtrack in a very long time.
I know. I'm digging deep into my mind into things, and that's what's cool about this is that's the same thing with me while doing research for that song last week is like, oh, okay, there's a lot of songs on this to do. So I enjoyed picking this one.
The wife gives it a thumbs up. So
thank you so much.
Good pick. So that's our show for today. Thanks, Tone, for great, excellent picks today. Be sure to check out this penguinstudios.com. We got a bunch of blogs. New stuff was released this week. I did a blog on the Rage Against the Machine, their influence on music and basically society outlook, even 30 years later after their first jump on the scene. Tony did a really great blog on the Sox and the Cubs.
I was trying to think of song. Like I was like, as I'm watching the innings, I'm thinking of what song does this inning describe, and that's some of the songs I picked up.
Bringing out some music, that was a really good one. Also, if you guys are interested in seeing Furiosa but don't know how it's gonna go, I did a spoiler-free breakdown on the YouTube channel, so you can check it out on our YouTube channel, Six Penguin Studios. There, we got a lot of fun stuff coming up. I have some stuff in the works. I know Tony has some stuff in the works that we're going to be released. We're trying to dish out some new stuff every day to go along with our shows. Check out the Hookup on Music this week. Tone, what you got planned?
Oh, this week I've been thinking into a subject that's kind of like bands who they do things that are just unbelievable sometimes that you wouldn't think a band can do. So we're going to see where that's going to go, and a lot of other awesome topics, and please tune in Tuesday for the It's Getting Drafty in here, because you have to, because it's amazing, because also it's got to do with movies, 1984 movies, a lot of classics from 1984. Recently saw a little post about Frankenweenie. It makes me laugh because I remember seeing this movie in my cousin's house and being like, at 11 years old, what the hell is Frankenweenie? And being told it's Tim Burton before it was Tim Burton. So again, tune in. It's going to be amazing.
Yes, Brian has 2 great guests. We got one of the At the Show regulars in Mailman Jack, and the Sadistic Penguin Studios OG in Aloha Mr. Hands to be on that show. So that's going to be interesting. 2 guys who know a lot about films and a lot about 1984 because they're old. No, no, just 2 guys who have great minds for movies and awesome people. So be sure to check it out. I know I will be checking it out as well. And then Brian says he's going to do 1994 films 2 weeks from today, which it will be a Sunday, which will be pretty awesome.
Really good.
So be sure, we got a lot of good stuff coming to penguinstudios.com. Be sure to like and subscribe and check out the blogs if you can. But thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We really appreciate your time and checking us out on this Sunday. We'll be seeing you next week on Friday for Predator. Take it easy, guys.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the At the Show podcast, a Sadistic Penguin Studios production.
Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?